knowing at some point, because it's a loser's mentality, you can't win at that point. It was almost like I wanted to lose. That's pretty sick. Like that I won all that money and told them not even to worry about it. Don't worry about it. There was times where I would go out to Vegas, I'd win 25,000 and I'd have to come back and pay somebody 18 to 20,000. And I was like, I went out there and did all that work just to pay off somebody else. What a terrible, terrible feeling. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Kast, Small Steps, Big Changes. I'm your host, TJ DelVecchio. What I'd like to talk about today is another one of the vices that I had, or I still have, I guess I'll always have them, gambling. They kind of all go hand in hand when they're a vice. You use gambling, drinking, drugs. They kind of all mix in together when you're going through these phases in your life, when you can't have control of how to handle yourself. Again, everything I do, if I'm going to do it, I jump in with 2 feet, 2 hands, and I'm diving all the way in. I just don't dip my toe into something. So it was the same thing with gambling as it was for drinking, as it was for, taking opioids and doing other drugs. The gambling aspect was something that came into my life pretty young. I just remember back even when I was in junior high school, I would play with my high school friends. We would roll dice on the weekends. And sometimes I would get so out of control that thank God they were my high school friends, but they kind of gave me an out. Sometimes I would owe $400 or $500 by the time we were done because I have such an addictive personality. And when you're an athlete, you never want to lose. And you got to understand, gambling is set up for you to lose unless you're on the other side taking the bets or you're the casino. Have you ever seen in your life a casino go out of business? I've seen a lot of people go broke, including myself. So have you ever seen, and some of you people that are much younger don't even know about this because gamble's legalized, that, we used to call them bookmakers. It would be where the person you called to make your bets with. Did you ever see those guys go out of business? Never, ever in my life. So when you're an athlete, you always think you have an edge because you played all these sports, whether it was growing up or at college level or even at the pro level. You see some of these big name pro guys that have got themselves into gambling problems because we have addictive personalities and we think we know more than what just the average Joe knows about sports. And that's even worse. I'm telling you right now, most sites that take on clients like that, or most bookmakers that are taking clients on like that, I'm sure I will tell you that they would say they were their best clients for multiple reasons. A lot of times a big time athlete has a ton of money and he'll start winning early, and then the juices to win 5,000 isn't even that much. So now he's looking to win 10,000, 20,000. Before you know it, you're going to owe him 25, 30, 40,000. And to be quite honest, I've been down that road numerous times. And what you end up doing is making bad decisions because you're scared of how much money you have to pay, or your nervous system tells you, I can't believe I just lost $25,000 gambling when I could have used that towards putting my son to school or buying a new car. Or you start putting everything into perspective, because when you're in the moment and gambling is just fun and you're doing it as just like entertainment, that's great. But when you start making it a job, which like I did, thought that I could, early on I was winning. And I almost think that that's how the devil drags you in, right? Like, every time first person that goes to the casino, they've never been there, I feel like they let them win. It's like almost like it's a sign. Okay, let him win so he'll come back again and again and again. And by the end of the time, people end up losing no matter what. Even if you win and you're a controlled gambler, by the time you're done and the time you're dead, I guarantee you, if you add up your wins and losses, even if you broke even, that's a huge win. But most of the time, you end up being a loser. And I don't mean a loser in life. I'm just talking about a loser in gambling. And I did that too. So when I was drinking, it used to enhance my bets because I didn't have a clear mind. So I would bet more when I was drinking, and then I would wake up the next morning and be like, oh my God, I'm stuck 5,000. Oh my God, I'm stuck 10,000. I'd have a clear head, but I would be focused on chasing the 10,000, and I would bet, and sometimes I would win and I come all the way back. And then other times I would lose more and I'd be sick to my stomach, and it would put me in a bad mood. It would change how I felt about things. You start fighting with yourself internally, and then you do not want to be productive. What you end up doing is internalizing what's going on. How am I going to pay this bet? I got to come up with, and back in the day, you paid everything off in cash. So then you had to go to the bank. It was just one torture chamber after another, thinking about like the steps you had to get there. And what I've learned over the time, that even when I won, say I won big, that feeling of winning, because I've been in Vegas, I've sat at tables where I've played blackjack with. And you could have anybody back this up that I bring them onto the show, that I've won 25,000, 30,000, but it's such a quick little in and out feeling that it's like, okay, great, I won 25,000. What am I doing next? Okay, and then I'm on to, let's go back and play again. And then you go back and forth with these swings when you're out there, and you're up and down and you're up and down. It's mentally and physically exhausting. And what I do know is the casino host ask you to come back out, and they give you, maybe they'll give you your rooms for free, or they put you on the food and beverage for free. So you get your rooms, food and beverage for free, but you end up spending $25,000 gambling when it would only cost you probably, even to stay in the nicest suite would only cost you 10 probably for 3 or 4 days, right? So the concept of going out there to win for a purpose, and the concept of going to do it out there for entertainment, I never could really put the two and two together, because I always went out there thinking I was going to win 50. It's such a horrible way to think about things, but again, that's my life. I would tell you this all the time. When I would go 3 for 4, I would harp on the fact that I didn't get a hit to go 4 for 4. I didn't think about the things that actually mattered at the time to say, oh my God, 3 for 4 in baseball is amazing, right? So I would go 7 out of 8 betting and be like, why didn't I win 8 out of 8? And I could have parlayed that, and I could have 150. It was always one more, and never just sat back and said, wow, that was a ridiculous amount of games. I won 7 out of 8 games, and I'm up, whatever the number may be, 10, 15, 20,000. But when I was going bad, I had every excuse. I can't believe this happened. This guy did this. This guy did. And guess what? You do nothing but perseverate about the bad shit and never think about the good stuff. And it puts you in a mindset like, I'm always getting screwed. I always did it. But no, you're screwing yourself because you're putting yourself in those situations. Now, if you have self-control and you can go out there and you say, you know what? I'm going to go out, or I'm going to bet on the weekend. I'm only going to bet 2 football games. I don't know too many people that do that. But if they're going to only bet 2 football games, and if I win or lose, great, and I move on to the next weekend, and this is the money I set aside that I give, it usually never works out that way, because what do you end up usually doing? You end up going to a bar to watch the football game, so then you end up drinking, and then you're not clear, right? And then what leads into, you know what? I can't believe I lost that game. I'm going to bet this game too. And then before you know it, you bet 5 games in a day. And by the way, sometimes I would have bet 10 or 12 or 15 games in a day. And you can't win. It's impossible. The more games you bet, the less chances. Why do you think when you hit lotto, the numbers, it's a 1 in a billion or whatever the number is, and a chance to win, hit all those numbers, and the Powerball? It's impossible. Literally impossible. You got a better chance of getting struck by lightning. And what people don't realize is that we live in these dream worlds that like, because again, they see people on TV, they see people on social media, they say, they talk about all these, how you could quick fix to win, follow this guy to win. But what they're doing is leading you into something so they can make money off of you. That's what that's all about. But the gambling part, I'm telling you, outside of quitting opioids, gambling is, for me, was something that I love to do. And what ended up happening, as much as I did with drinking almost every day, it became part of my life. It didn't matter where I was. All of a sudden, before I knew it, I was into some. We were playing cards. I'm gambling. We're out. We're shooting, playing for darts, and we're playing darts, shooting darts, and now all of a sudden I'm gambling. Like, whether it's for drinks, whether it's for money, and I'm not saying that you're not supposed to have that competitive nature, but when you can't control yourself, like I couldn't even with alcohol, it gets out of control. And then it can get into arguments, it can get into fights, and it can put you in very bad places. And I was in a bad place even when I was making lots of money. That was even worse because I had a lot of cash on me to try to do things that I thought was going to give me more. And it's just never, ever enough. I'll give you a couple examples. One weekend, it was probably over about 4 or 5 weekends. And of course now sports is played, football games are, you got college football. So you could pretty much bet almost every day between college and pro football. And I remember over 4 or 5 weekends, I was up about $90,000. 90. The next 3 weekends, I was stuck 120. So, and I never collected a dollar. I paid out. You talk about people that used to love people like myself. I never went and collected because I'm like, just hold it. Almost like I'm telling myself I'm going to lose. I used to be like, hold it till next weekend. Hold it till next weekend. They'd be like, okay, no problem. They'd hold until next weekend. Hold it till next weekend. Knowing at some point, because it's a loser's mentality, you can't win at that point. It was almost like I wanted to lose. That's pretty sick. Like that I won all that money and told them not even to worry about it. Don't worry about it. There was times where I would go out to Vegas, I'd win $25,000, and I'd have to come back and pay somebody $18,000 to $20,000. And I was like, I went out there and did all that work just to pay off somebody else. What a terrible, terrible feeling. But I kept doing it. I don't know why. And then sooner or later, I think what happens, we get tired, we get exhausted, or you continue down that rabbit hole of never getting out of your own way, and it's just a vicious cycle. And that's how I felt about the opioids. That's how I felt about drinking. Like I said, the opioids got me to a point where I couldn't take anymore, probably before my kidneys and liver shut down. And to get to that high feeling, because I couldn't, my body just was numb to it. So the next step would have been heroin. Thank God I didn't do that, because I'm really, really blessed that I'm here. But the same thing with alcohol. Like if I had one drink, I've never gone out and just had one drink. There's a lot of people out there that can do it, and I'm not jealous. I'm not envious. That's amazing. I think it's a fantastic trait to have. But I've never, ever done that. It's always been, if we're going to go drink, let's go drink. And my drinking would start in the afternoon and then lead into night and then sometimes into late night. Same thing with gambling. If I was going to gamble, I wasn't just going to gamble $10. I had to gamble, even when I didn't have a ton of money, I was gambling over my head, which is horrible because all you're doing is putting more and more pressure on yourself for no reason. And we have enough stress in our life to deal with. On top of you're using what you said was entertainment, which I said was entertainment, but it was more stress that it was almost like I needed more stress to continually, like I was trying to kill myself in a way where and a slow death because I was so angry with me and not being able to handle one situation in my life that caused this downfall. That made me think about just all the negatives. And I have so much to be positive for. And I'm truly blessed at this point in my life. Like I said, I based everything off of money. So I guess the quick fix was, well, if I can make money gambling, well, you can't unless I was on the opposite side or unless I wanted to start a casino. That would have been great. I would be a billionaire right now. But the amount of money I lost gambling, good Lord. I mean, it was a lot of money over the years. And like I said, I started this, even before I was in college. I was doing this in high school. Not as much because it was really hard for high school to, but of course I was doing it. And I had good friends that were like, okay, you need to stop. And then I would stop and I'd get my focus back on sports, back on baseball. And then here I was again. And then in college, it happened in college. And it was just a repeat cycle. And then again, it happened again after college. And I went broke. I think I might have told you guys this, and this will be for another episode. But like, I did make my first $1 million before I was 30. I was broke by the time I was 30. And a lot of it was gambling on the market and gambling, in sports. And so I had this vicious cycle that I could never get out of. And I don't know if it was because my competitive nature always said that I could win because I didn't lose too much when I was young. And I thought I knew everything. But gambling is completely different. It doesn't matter if you played in the NHL, MLB, NBA, or the NFL, or you're just a kid that never played sports in his life. It's luck. There's a little bit of skill now because there's a lot of research and stuff you can do, but it's still luck because it can go the wrong way. It's like betting on the stock market. Another reason why I love the stock market is, I've always said this, it's legalized gambling. You make decisions and you go with your gut, and then you try to win. I did that and I went broke, early on in my career when I was on Wall Street. Like I said, it wasn't just from sports betting. There was some stocks that I owned that went to zero. So, and I had no clue that could even exist. I was young, green, and I was making lots of money. And I was angry as a motherfucker. So you add all those together and not thinking sensible, drinking, gambling, and then after that, you add the trifecta with the opioids and the drugs. How could I ever have been successful? And I think I'm starting to realize that now at 52, it's amazing that I'm here because of that. I think back and I'm like, good Lord, I had so much stress. On top of that, being almost 300 pounds. So talking about every strike against me, and not because I came from a terrible family or I grew up poor. None of that shit. None. It was all because of me. I did this to me because I hated myself. And it was tough for me to understand that. Like, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. The anger always built, even when I was younger. It always built up. And I got more and more angry, even when I was making lots of money, even when I won big games, like in betting. Like I'd high five and be like, that was awesome. Okay, on to the next thing. I got another story. I'm out in the Super Bowl. We're watching Tom Brady win. Early on, they were 7-1 underdogs. We took the Patriots to win. The game was one of the best games in Super Bowl history. And Brady played the most unbelievable game. I left at halftime because I was bored and I went and played blackjack. That's fucking crazy. And I won that bet. And then I ended up winning playing blackjack. But none of it registered. Again, it's like I could never enjoy the little things in life and some of the big things. Like, I mean, to win something like that, a 7-1 underdog is like, that's for them to win on the field is like almost not impossible, but it's that's why they're 7-1. I mean, they're long odds. So, and I didn't even take the time to like sit down and like fully watch the game because I was on to the next, let me go bet more someplace else. Like, I don't know why my mind works like that, but it does. And that's why I have to be careful with all this stuff. And it's truly amazing that I'm here to tell this story, but also being able to live where I live and still have money in my pocket and still have my health and my wonderful kids. All that stuff to me now is the most important thing. Like, I guess I had to go through a period of time in my life to realize how lucky I am today, because those three things, you take gambling, you take alcohol, you take opioids, and you take them out of my life, that's the most important thing. But the most number one important thing, I started to love myself. Like I never did, even when I was younger. I don't know why. I'm not sure. I guess maybe I didn't understand. And like I told you, the hardest thing to do when you never lose as a little boy, like I barely ever lost. And if I did, you know, we were always in the finals. I played on junior high school basketball teams that we went undefeated for 2 years. Not that like, you know, we had all Division I players, but it was like, that was really hard to do in basketball. I mean, not that you were playing 50 games, but we played, 17, 18 games both years, and we went undefeated. And you know how going undefeated is really, really hard to do. We did it back-to-back years. So I've also played on football teams, basketball teams, baseball teams that have, had unbelievable records all the way through college. So not getting that actual kick in the balls at a young age and understanding what adversity was, to work harder and always being on top, even when you didn't win the whole thing, but you were close to there. And that drove me a little bit harder to work harder, but never was I on a team that came in last or like that. That never happened. And I probably should have. So maybe I wouldn't have those, I don't know if you want to call them entitled tendencies or whatever they may be called. To not understand and handle adversity was my biggest downfall. And it's something that I just told my therapist that, and that I realized when I got to Wall Street, being as angry as I was, everything just got enhanced when I started making more money. The gambling went up, the drinking went higher, and then I got introduced to pills. Like, it was one thing after another. And then when your mind is not clear, you can't make decisions that are proper, and you can't be the best person you're supposed to be. That's one of the things I think about often, because with all that shit out of my life and somebody in my life that I love that actually truly understands me for me, because I don't want to say not normal. I'm fucked up sometimes. But I think we all are in our own ways. But with that being said, you have to understand, I didn't come from a bad place. I came from a great place. My mom and dad barely ever drank. My dad never gambled. No one in my house did drugs. So, I don't know where all this stuff came from. And I don't know why I thought it was the right thing to do at the time when I literally had the world by the balls, but I was just so angry. And that's all I can relate it back to, because everything else, my life was fine. It was great. I graduated college. I wanted to go work on Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street. I have 3 beautiful kids. Everybody was healthy, but it didn't matter. I was angry as a motherfucker. Now, I'm not sure if it was because, I do know baseball doing that to me is what caused it, but I also know that it might have, not being around like-minded people also make you go crazy. So when I separated all that stuff, that's when I realized, all that came out of my life and I just took time for me to understand me, then I realized that this is the best version of me that you have. And that's why I tell my youngest, my 10-year-old, I'm like, you're getting the best version of me that actually now my oldest kids didn't get when I thought I was. I was, being around there. I was at every sport. I coached them all, but the mental part of it, I wasn't good mentally. So how could I be good to my kids mentally? Now to my 10-year-old, and I have my days. I'm not perfect, but I'm way better than I used to be because I don't have that extra stress on me. Like I don't worry about whether I'm betting on a football game or betting on a basketball game or whatever it may be, and taking my attention off of whatever's going on so I can try to win money back. Because I just always remember more of the losses than I remember the wins, because when I had wins, like I said, they last for like minutes, that euphoric feeling. The losses would stay with me for like months. But I was dumb enough to keep doing it. And it's just amazing that this happens over and over again. And this is what I'm worried about with society. Because today, sports betting is pretty much legal anywhere you want to do it. It wasn't. It was harder for, somebody like myself to do it because you had to find, again, a bookmaker, somebody that would take your bets to do this. So in my eyes, I get nervous because you can go on TV and they got commercials talking about DraftKings, Penn Gaming, and you guys can all do everything off your phone. And the reason is because, hate to say it, it's now socially acceptable because the government's getting paid. So it wasn't socially acceptable, and it was something that, oh my God, it was, the crime families handle the gambling, and like, stop. Like now it's even easier for kids to be fucked up and adults to get fucked up because you can do everything off your phone. Before you had to call somebody, hide, you got to go, and then you got to go meet them and pay them. And like now everything's done right off your phone. It makes me more worried. And this is one of the reasons why I want to talk about it, because it's a scary place we live in now. Everything is, you can point and click and you can get it. Same thing with weed. It's socially acceptable now. We have young kids that, I don't know if you're hitting the vape pen or if you're hitting a pen that has weed in it. Nothing smells, so nobody knows. And everybody gets their marijuana card because they have anxiety or they can't sleep. To me, that's all bullshit. Like, because nobody does I shouldn't say nobody. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can handle it, but you shouldn't be doing that throughout the day because you're not thinking clearly. You're not being the best version of you. You want to use it to sleep, great, awesome. But I just think that it always carries on to something else because we're always chasing that high, how I feel, how it makes me feel before I go to bed. Oh, you know what? I got a little anxiety when I wake up. Let me hit the pen now. And all of a sudden you're training your brain to do the same thing instead of being like, you know what? Let me work on my breathing. Let me get to the gym earlier. Let me get some of this anxiety out. That's what life's about. And I think if we could teach that, then we're going to have a more successful life, more success. And I'm proving it to my kids and my family because they see the transformation I made. And I'm really, really blessed. I've had a lot of good days the last couple of days with my kids and some really positive things coming through there. So I just wanted to share today's episode about gambling. They kind of all go hand in hand, but gambling is, again, it's supposed to be entertainment. There's a lot of people that can do it for entertainment. Me personally, I couldn't, but I want you to see why it kind of spirals into where it goes, starts from to. And that to me means a lot that, listen, at the end of the day, most people, if you can handle it, God bless you. I think there's a lot of people that say they can handle it, but don't really handle it because they're not being honest with themselves. And that's the truth. Anyways, looking forward to our next episode. Thank you for following us on all our social media pages. And we look forward to having another great episode next week. Thank you.